diagnose better and can give me a more accurate results on what's going on.
I've heard that from other people that are affected by, tuberous sclerosis or another. Yeah, having a relationship with the doctor is definitely key. I know as a parent, it's really important to feel like you have that trust and you have the history. So when Joe Schmo comes in and tells you something that you're not sure of, you can circle back to the hub of your care, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's good that you have somebody like that. So if you go to see the physician assistant or whatever, and you're not sure, do you have a line of communication so you can ask questions of him or he or she, the neurologist?
Well, for him, he's very busy. I think that's why he started getting an assistant's position.
Yep.
I would probably have to schedule an appointment to meet with him, which is kind of in the pain sometimes.
I bet.
I would rather meet with him and get things solved than not meet with him at all.
Right. So it sounds like you really have a pretty good handle on what you need to do for yourself to make things work. If you will, just dip in a little bit to the mental health piece. Now, how did you address that? Did you say, hey, I'm depressed, I think I need to talk to someone, or what was your process with that?
For mental health?
Yeah.
Mental health, I feel like I started seeing, when I was younger, I actually started seeing a school psychologist in elementary school, and I think that was more to do with the fact that maybe it was my epilepsy, maybe I was getting very depressed and they wanted me to see someone. Now when I was like about 16 or 17, they noticed that school psychologists were just not helping. And before I continue, I do want to let people know that school psychologists are great, but if you're really struggling, they're not going to be that beneficial to you. And it's maybe some school psychologists are great, but in my experience, I've had more help from a regular psychologist than a school psychologist, because when I would talk to them, the door wouldn't really be closed. It would be open. I couldn't, there were so many things that were on my mind, but I never felt comfortable to tell someone of faculty who might talk about it.
Right. Yeah.
But I started seeing my actual psychologist, and that's helped me so much better. I talk about my feelings, and seeing a psychologist has really helped me with that. We've gone through different types of ways to cope with it. We've talked about it. We've gone to deeper discussions about it. And every single time I leave, I feel like my eyes are finally open to something new.
That's wonderful to hear that the therapeutic process is really helping you, and you're working through it. You're not pushing anything down, and you're just walking through a lot of really challenging life circumstances, Saaim. I'm very impressed.
I have had a really good support system.
That was going to be my next question.
Oh, yeah.
You're one step ahead of me. So, yeah, tell me about your support network and how you...
Well, as you know, my dad's supportive about my epilepsy, but about most of my mental health, my boyfriend has been really supportive. For every single day, I keep a smile on my face. He always high-fives me, and it's a great support system.
Sounds like a person that's willing to really step outside of any kind of emotional turmoil himself and really help you. And I'm sure you give back just as much as you get too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you give yourself that credit, because it's a lot to overcome the things that you're dealing with. I can say that, I watched my kids go through stuff. I have a 20-year-old daughter, and she has tuberous sclerosis, but has had seizures and has a lot of depression issues. And it's just something all the time that is exceptional, and I don't think the average person really can relate. When you find those people that are willing to try to understand, I think that's what is needed. Do you feel that way?
I do. I really feel that way. I feel like it's really helped to be surrounded by positive people and about people who, it's good that they accept your flaws. Like being depressed, if someone accepts that I was a depressed person, I think, okay, cool, that's great. But having someone who kind of builds you up and tells you, hey, you know what, tomorrow's another day to improve upon yourself.
Yep.
I think that's amazing, and I think that's not something that you can really find in many people, because some people might just say, oh, well, they're depressed, it's fine. They might not know how to help. They might not feel like they can. Once you have a support system that's willing to help you improve upon yourself, I think that the best way to whether it's depression or anxiety or PTSD.
I agree.
Obviously, in my opinion, you're never not going to feel depression. I feel like just doesn't go away. It's not like something that can evaporate into thin air, but there are ways that you can control it. There are ways you can, maybe prevent yourself from going into depressive episodes. So
that's a very good illustration of depression. Yeah, it is kind of always there. I deal with it myself. It's knowing, what tools are in your toolbox to pull out and having a full toolbox, to speak metaphorically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about what do you do for fun, hobbies, interests?
Right now, I kind of play with my boyfriend's Nintendo Switch. I like to watch a lot of YouTube videos. Right now, it's winter, but I'm really into sports. I don't do it as much just because in the school year I'm always working, but I do like learning. Some days I don't, but walking away from each semester knowing something new is always kind of great.
And where are you at in your education?
I'm a sophomore in college.
Okay, you're a sophomore. And what is your track as far as what are you studying?
Computer science.
That's right, you said that. I'm sorry. Yeah,
no,
computer science. That's great. That's a good field. And challenging too, really challenging. But
yeah, that's why I was really proud of myself.
Oh, yeah.
When you have a learning disability, I kind of just went into communications probably my first time because I was like, you know what, it's going to be not so bad. And then I realized I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to figure things out. And then I finally decided on computer science. And it is challenging and I do struggle, but once you figure out a program and once you get it to work, it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a beautiful moment because that's a lot of really intense focus that's needed to do that kind of work. What would your advice be to young adults or actually anybody, whatever age they are, early adolescents, getting a diagnosis or having a diagnosis? What would your advice be to?
My advice would be to get as much knowledge and ask as much questions as possible.
Knowledge about your condition and...
Yeah, knowledge about the condition. Know a lot about who you are as a person because right now I'm 20 and I am literally going on websites, going to different information places and trying to find information about my epilepsy and trying to learn about my brain. And it's kind of difficult because once you're older, I feel like people don't tell you as much as they would when you're a child.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's really helpful because children might not think, I want to know more. They might not want to know more about their condition or their disorder.
Was it hard for you to listen to doctors talk about it? Did it make you anxious, when they're talking about your brain or whatever?
I was never really anxious about it. When I was younger, it was more just like a regular checkup. I wish I could have more time with my doctors to ask them more information. There's so many things out there that can be misperceived on websites. That's why I suggest to always, if you're unsure, ask. And another thing for getting diagnosed, it can be really life-changing. It doesn't look life-changing for me since I can drive and I can do all this stuff, but it really is. And to just realize, look, if you can overcome this, you can overcome everything. And each day is going to be a new day. So if this one sucked, then tomorrow you have another chance to make it better.
Right. So not letting feelings on one day carry over to the next day.
Yes.
Keep moving forward.
That's actually what I want to make for my speech. I'm not the best writer. I tend to go off script sometimes and I tend to kind of go in my own little world. So I've been having trouble with writing my speech, but I do want that to be my motivation as to let students or parents or adults in general know, look, I was in this hardship with my mental health, with my epilepsy, but I made it this far and I wanted to keep moving forward because there's always a bright side to everything. And that's something I live by. There's always a bright side.
Yeah, I live the same way. There were times when I didn't, but I do now. The fact that you've got that at age 20 will serve you well throughout your life.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to talk about? I've kind of gone off script myself a little bit here, circling back to anything else that you might want to share
this isn't something mental health, I guess, yeah, mental health related, but it is something I want to bring to like younger high school to middle school students about loving yourself and realizing your self-worth. Because as I said, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship, and it wasn't just that one guy. There were multiple people in my life starting online, and no one knew about it. It was just me because I kept it very secret. But I want to let, whether it's a guy or a girl, I know we all face insecurities when we're in middle school and when we're in high school, and there's so much expectations of us with the way we look and the way we dress. But just realize your self-worth. Realize that you deserve a kind person who cares about you, who cherishes you, and to know that just because someone says they love you doesn't mean they mean it.
Do you think
and I know that can be really hard to I know when you're young, you're just like, oh my gosh, one person said they liked me. This means everything, you know?
Right. You latch onto that quickly. I was going to say, do you think, having a condition like epilepsy made you a little more vulnerable to relationships that might not have been the best that they could be, just because, you were still not quite where you are now with your self-worth, and it seems like it's a risk. So
yeah, I think it was because I didn't want to talk about it when I was younger. I didn't like talking about it, not as much as I do now.
How did you turn that corner?
And talking about it more?
Yeah.
I think it's when I started wanting to advocate more about epilepsy, and I was tired of just complaining about people not understanding and people not caring about my disability, about my disorder, because it's not something that's noticeable, and I think I was just sick and tired of
I can relate.
that. And I just was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to guest speak. I'm going to do something with it, such as my YouTube channel. And
so you have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. I will put that in the notes when I post the episode. And what do you share on your YouTube channel? Do you have a name for it?
It's just my name, Saaim Ali, Saaimali.
Okay. And what do you share?
I've been talking a lot about mental health, and I've been trying to save up for a camera, so I haven't made a video in a few months. So once I get that camera and once I get everything set up, I will continue to make videos.
Oh, good.
I did talk about ways to cope with depression. I talked about would I want to find a cure for my epilepsy, and I talked about I'm trying to focus a little bit on epilepsy, but I feel like living with mental health, that's something I should also incorporate into it. Sometimes I do makeup videos where I just talk about random stuff, but mostly I'm trying to focus on epilepsy and mental health and giving ideas on how to cope with things and educating people.
What a great resource. I am going to definitely pass that on, because just that you're willing to talk about it, I think it's so needed. There's just so much of a stigma. Neurological conditions go hand in hand with a lot of mental health. They're part of each other. And there's this disconnect in our society, as you probably well know, between like the physical and the mental health. So, I think people are just...
There's something I did want to mention because... So this one girl, she's still my friend. I'm not going to hold it against her for saying this, but I told her I have a disability. I know epilepsy obviously doesn't look debilitating, and I can do more things I could do in the past, but mentally wise, it is. I struggle a lot in school. I'm very exhausted. Sometimes I kind of worry about my future and getting a job because I feel like I can't even handle 3 days a week at my current job. Anyways, she told me, no, you don't. And that kind of shocked me a bit.
Oh, boy.
Just because I was,
you think?
Yeah. Said I didn't have it, and I had to explain it to her. And in a way, I was fine with explaining it, but it came to the point where I was feeling a bit embarrassed because I was like, okay, I'm still explaining this to her.
That's unbelievable that someone would say that to you.
Yeah. I don't hold it against her just because it's something I still need to educate people about, but I still do think about that, and I still think about the astonishment of being told that, because it did make me a bit depressed, and it made me feel like, do I need to do something in order for people to see that it can be debilitating?
Yeah, it's silent, and you look normal and nobody knows.
Yeah, it is a motivation. And I did hear, like, I will hear on Twitter people being actually told that. And when I was told that, I just couldn't believe it because I've never been, I've never witnessed that. I was always that person online who's just like, wow, I've never been told that. That's very interesting. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then it happened to you, and you were able to keep perspective on it.
Yeah.
Without letting it really affect your self-esteem and knowing that it wasn't you, it's her, and making it a positive step where you're like, okay, I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah. And in a way, I could just share that as another story.
Yes.
It's something I can be like, look, I've been told this, but...
Yeah, but I didn't make it a negative thing, and you made it into a motivation for your advocacy.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I find a little bit sad sometimes in the epilepsy community because they take things so personally. It's very sad to see that just because I feel like I have grown up very quickly.